Homage to the fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to the wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all the benevolent lineage masters. The supreme Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered, even in millions of eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, may we all generate the supreme bodhicitta. Let's continue to study the words of my perfect teacher together. I have repeatedly emphasized the importance of the preliminaries. The text of the words of my perfect teacher is easier to understand than the Madhyamaka, the Hetuvidya, or the Prajnaparamita Sutra, etc. We can put it this way. But in fact, it is not easy to truly assimilate the meaning properly. To truly take the teaching to heart, study and practice of the teaching cannot be separated, and the combination of study and practice for a long term is required. I have been thinking that the classes on the words of my perfect teacher, this time, are taught in a quite comprehensive and detailed manner. I don't know whether impermanence will manifest and whether we can complete this text thoroughly in the end. But for now, I am quite satisfied with the current pace of the teaching. I believe many of you will benefit from it greatly, no matter what practices you have done before, which school you have followed, or whether you study the scriptures and treatises from the Sutrayana or Tantrayana tradition. I am not teaching this text in pursuit of praise, but because I genuinely feel that the opportunity to study this Dharma together is deeply precious, and I approach it with utmost sincerity. For every and each lecture, an indescribable joy arises in my heart. This isn't just empty talk on my part. I feel these teachings are extremely important for many people. All of you who have the karma to receive these teachings should reflect deeply and repeatedly examine whether this teaching is of importance to you. While anyone might explain such stories and scriptural references superficially, to truly understand them requires a kind of direct experience. Mere intellectual understanding is insufficient without genuine realization. It may sound a bit arrogant, but I have a sense of pride based on confidence when teaching the words of my perfect teacher. What is called pride based on confidence? I personally feel my teachings on the preliminary are quite good. If you were to ask me to teach the actual practices of Dzogchen or the practices of the Madhyamaka, I may not teach well because my practices on those dharma are relatively weak. But for the preliminaries, I have been continuously habituating myself with all of them and reflected on them over many years. Moreover, I have been habituating myself with each principle not only for 1 or 2 days or a year or two, but for many years, such as the principles of the impermanence of life and the rarity of human rebirth. After these many years of habituation and practice, I have indeed developed a genuine and stable conviction in my mind regarding every principle such as the impermanence of life. So, I feel confident to teach others with this state of realization. Therefore, I hope everyone will not just understand the text which is taught here, but should truly experience it, feel its profound meaning, and then integrate it into your practice and daily life. After that, I believe that each of these principles will be necessary for everyone, regardless of the sect they follow or their mental and physical state. For now, there is no need to differentiate between sects. For instance, for a person who is extremely hungry, there is no need to make a choice between tsampa and rice, because if they don't eat, they'll die immediately. At that time, there is no need to say, I am of this nationality or that religion, so I have to choose a specific food. For each of us, we've encountered such a delicious feast of Dharma in the desert of samsara. So we should willingly and joyfully accept it, which is the right thing to do. Therefore, during this extensive teaching of the words of my perfect teacher, I hope each of you can repeatedly reflect on it. What I say may not be completely correct, and if it's not, you can discard it. But I'm saying this because In my heart, I sincerely believe that such teachings are indispensable for everyone. Nowadays, there are many empowerments and transmissions given by various lamas, which is also good. I do not rule out that some individuals with superior faculties or with very good karmic connections can directly attain the state of Samantabhadra Tathagata through these empowerments and transmissions. This is indeed possible. For example, the Chan tradition has always been using very simple words to teach, and enlightenment has been achieved in this way, which is an undeniable history. However, for the majority of us, in terms of our faculties, a stable understanding of the preliminaries is crucial. And among all the preliminary teachings, the impermanence of life is especially important. If you can truly develop a deep understanding and firm faith in the principle of life's impermanence, you won't be that much interested in worldly things and matters. Significant changes will happen in your life. In the past, you weren't aware that everyone will die, and when death comes, only the true Dharma will be of any benefit. Without having conviction in the understanding of impermanence, you lived blindly. Now you know the reality of life and understand the truth of the impermanence. Therefore, you will no longer have such strong attachments towards worldly things such as status, fame, wealth, and so forth. Without attachments, Dharma practicing will become much easier. Thus, I believe the source of renunciation is greatly rooted in the understanding and conviction of impermanence. If you do not understand principles like the impermanence of life, it is very possible that even though you might appear to be a practitioner, in reality, you are just always preoccupied with your own worldly daily life without any clear direction. So it is very important that everyone should have a very joyful attitude to receive such teachings. For some people living in large cities, it takes a lot of time, money, energy, and so on to even attend a single lecture. But I feel such effort is very necessary. Since the beginningless time, and especially in this very life, how much effort have we wasted on things without any value or significance? Many of us are surely aware of this ourselves. So I believe it is perfectly justified to invest in such profound and wonderful Dharma. I hope that each time you listen to a lecture and each time you receive the Dharma, you should first generate a joyful attitude. The power of the human mind is truly unimaginable. Take the example of walking from here to Surthar County, which is over 20 kilometers. If I go with joy in my heart, time would seem to pass quickly. But if I was unwilling to go, I would feel extremely exhausted during the journey. Some people say, it's not the physical fatigue we fear, while it's the mental fatigue. Indeed, if we cannot develop faith in the Dharma, and our hearts are unable to bear it, you would feel especially tired no matter doing anything. With a sense of joy in your heart, even if your body is not well, or if you face various obstacles and difficulties while doing something, you can still confront and overcome them resolutely and bravely. Therefore, we must approach Dharma with joy, which is extremely important. The content of today's teaching in the original text is, in our own families, each generation, parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents has died in succession, leaving behind only their names. Even in our own generation, many siblings and relatives have passed away. As time flows on and circumstances change, none can know where they have taken rebirth. Earlier, we have discussed that the 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter, monasteries as well as cities, all truly change fast, moment by moment. Everyone should understand such a principle of impermanence. Today, instead of talking about places and people which are far away from us, let us observe our surroundings. All of us have a family, and today we will observe our families. Reflecting back from your childhood to the present, how many people in your family have passed away? Looking back further and tracing back through your ancestors and forefathers, Many people have already departed. Some of you may not even know the names of your ancestors. In ancient China, there were family genealogies which recorded the names of ancestors of many generations. But such things of family genealogies are not valued anymore. If a situation like this continues and as time goes on, you may not even know what your great-great-great-great-grandfather was like, such as what caste or race he belonged to. How could you know? So if you truly want to trace it back, you will find that countless people, one generation after another, have passed away. Each family has had great people such as emperors and princesses who brought much glory and honor to the family, but they have been forgotten gradually. After some time, we will also leave this world. If we observe people you know from childhood until now one by one, such as our brothers and sisters, some of our classmates, neighbors and fellow practitioners, it is easy to find out that many of them have passed away and everything is impermanent. And as time passes, circumstances change and many people and things have gone. Even in this Larung 5 Science Buddhist Institute, some of my old friends from 10 years ago often tell me, why are all the faces here new now? They can't find any of their old friends anymore. A while ago, a Khenpo told me that he was trying to find someone he knew from before, and he had searched everywhere, but couldn't find anyone. Of course, this is how it is. Some of the friends from 10 years ago have passed away. Some have left. Some are no longer here due to various reasons. So indeed, in every place, impermanence continually reveals itself in front of us. But ordinary people are always hindered by an obstacle, which has blinded us to see the truth of impermanence. Because of a continuous and consistent attachment in our mind, it is very hard for us to see the major impermanence that occurs over a year, let alone the subtle impermanence of moment-to-moment changes. As the original text said, it is hard to know where our deceased family members are reborn. Indeed, it is very important to observe the changes within our households to understand impermanence. It is just like what Milarepa did, recorded in the biography of Milarepa. Once Milarepa returned to his village. At that time, he was deeply saddened and cried by the riverside. Around dusk, he arrived at the place where his family used to live. When he got there, the fields were already overgrown with weeds and thorny trees, and the once glorious, splendid house where he used to live had completely collapsed and became ruins. In the ruins, he found many old clothes which had already decayed. Then Milarepa began digging in the mound of dirt, and he eventually found his mother's skeleton. At that moment, he was deeply grieved, holding his mother's skeleton and fainting to the ground. After a while, he regained consciousness and recalled the teachings his Guru Marpa had transmitted to him, which are the Mahamudra Pith instructions and the truth of the impermanence of all phenomena. Then he settled in the state of Mahamudra while merging his mother's consciousness, his own mind, and the wisdom of his Guru into one. He meditated like this for 7 days and 7 nights. Later, in his meditative state, he came to know that his father and mother had escaped from the lower realms and been reborn in the Pure Land. He made his mother's ashes into a Buddha statue and made offerings before it. He also saw the Great Jewel Heap Sutra, which his family used to have a copy of and had turned into a bird's nest. Milarepa cleaned off all the dust and dirt on the scriptures and took a portion of his mother's bones. Then he began to make vows. In Tibet, there is such a tradition. For instance, if a very important person in the family dies, the deeply grieved parents or children might make vows before the corpse, saying, "Because of your death, I will renounce the world, or I will recite such and such sutras." Making vows before the corpse is a long-standing tradition in Tibet. The other day, someone told me the reason why he became a monk was because someone in his family died. Maybe he also made a vow in front of the corpse. This tradition is very common in Tibet. Later, Milarepa took his mother's skeleton and the remaining texts of the Great Jewel Heap Sutra and made vows. In this life, I must go deep into the mountains to practice. He made a strong and firm vow, then went to the mountains. Afterwards, Milarepa said, with this experience of returning home, he developed a genuine and pure renunciation in his heart, after truly seeing the scenes of his family's ruin and death. He also saw worldly people busily, meaninglessly making money and building houses, which he thought had no substantial meaning, just like building houses in a dream. Moreover, he truly developed a profound conviction in the impermanence of all phenomena. And from then on, he never wasted time like worldly people do, regardless of the mockery of others and his own hunger and hardship. He made a vow that he would dedicate himself to Dharma practice until realization and enlightenment. So many of you here, through the deaths of your family members and friends or the betrayal of someone you trust, or by observing the impermanence of your own actions and behavior, should deeply understand that nothing in this world is reliable. With this mindset, you must make firm vows, which is very important. There are many teachings on making such vows in the guidance on the preliminary practices. When making vows, you must pray to the Guru and the three jewels. And we often pray to the Guru and the three jewels that, may you compassionately watch over me, and may my vows succeed. It is extremely important that we make these vows from the heart. Otherwise, if we just recite the aspiration of Samantabhadra through our lips, without any contemplation in our minds, just casually reciting or meditating, although this will generate merits and virtuous roots, the power is not very strong. This is why in the past, many practitioners of the Kadampa and Nyingma schools had achieved excellent results, even though they didn't spend a long time practicing. The reason and key point of their success is the strength of the mind, which is very important. So here, regarding the impermanence of all phenomena, when many practitioners return home to visit family, you may notice the changes of your entire family, which should definitely inspire a sense of renunciation in your heart. I think everyone and every family must have experienced some changes over time. For example, what was it like when you were still studying in schools? Now, when you go back, everything must have greatly changed, which shows that the wise teachings of impermanence constantly appear in front of our eyes. Even though seeing all these changes, for those who have not practiced before and only stuck in theoretical understanding, the insight of impermanence would not arise in their heart. Only if the conviction in the principle of impermanence truly arises in your heart, your practice will naturally succeed, and you will not be so invested in worldly trivial matters. Therefore, practice is essential. A while ago, a layperson told me, "Oh, studying Dharma has both benefits and drawbacks for my life." I asked, "Why are there benefits?" Because after studying Dharma, I realized that I was leading an inappropriate lifestyle before. So now I don't interact with my previous friends at all. Then my business is not doing well, which is the drawback. As for the benefit, I no longer drink, smoke, or kill, and I now live a very pure, simple, and modest life. I think he was speaking sincerely. Indeed, if the true Dharma is integrated into your heart, you certainly won't have any time to engross yourselves in trivial pursuits. You won't be interested in doing meaningless things. For example, if someone is about to be executed by firing squad, knowing their life is so short, do you think they have time or are interested in watching a play? Certainly not. So once the conviction of impermanence and the brevity of life truly arise in your mind, it might impact your life. The impact is that you will realize there is nothing worth cherishing in this dreamlike life. The original text goes on, "Many of those who were powerful, wealthy, and highly esteemed just a year ago are now nothing more than names. As for the people who are wealthy, powerful now and envied by many, will they still be in this world next year, or even next month? No one knows. Actually, in this world, there are many rich and wealthy people around us who are perfectly endowed with everything. They are the most prominent, like the ornaments of the whole world. For example, we often say a wealthy person is like the adornment of a country or a region. But such a person might decline because of having a bad year in business or for various reasons. In the past, he might have ranked first among the world's wealthy or famous people. But now, they are not ranked at all. Such things do happen. There is an American magazine called Forbes. This magazine discussed a lot on this year's financial crisis. Once the financial crisis emerged, many former rich people experienced significant changes. For instance, in 2008, there were about 1,125 people with a fortune of $1 billion, but the number suddenly dropped to 793 in 2009. Previously, many people's businesses were doing well. When the financial crisis happened, a lot of worldly wealth suddenly disappeared, just like a hailstorm. Another economic magazine reported that around 2008, there were 8 people with 30 billion Chinese yuan. In 2009, it had already declined, and the number of people who have a fortune of 30 billion Chinese yuan is 0. There were 26 people with 20 billion Chinese yuan in 2008, which decreased to 1 person in 2009. It all happened very, very quickly. Someone who was once very wealthy can suddenly lose all of their money. It can be seen that wealth, influence, or authority are all impermanent. There is nothing reliable about them. If they are reliable, they would be eternal, or, at the very least, would not change for many years. But sometimes, it is absolutely not the case. Therefore, it's easy to see impermanence when we observe the lives of the very wealthy. Moreover, when they die, they cannot enjoy any of their wealth themselves. There was a former wealthiest woman in Asia named Ruxin Gong. You might have heard of her. Ruxin Gong started her business with her husband from scratch, and then they became very wealthy. But unfortunately, her husband passed away. After that, news in the United States and Hong Kong both reported her personal assets, but they had different numbers. Some said her wealth was 40 billion Hong Kong dollars, and some said it was 7 billion US dollars. No matter what the number, she was extremely wealthy, and her assets were 7 times that of the Queen of the United Kingdom. After her husband died, a conflict arose between Ruxin Gong and her father-in-law regarding the ownership of her husband's assets, because her husband had likely told his father verbally that his assets would be left to his father. Ruxin Gong and her father-in-law had a 9-year legal battle. In the end, Ruxin Gong won the case and she got her husband's assets because of their legal marriage relationship. But less than a year and a half after she won the case, she died of cancer. When she died, she left behind so much wealth that was nothing for her after all. So, really, when you look at it, the common worldly wealth really means nothing, which you will have to let go ultimately. Last year, there was a wealthy man in Jiangsu named Kunlin Bao. His assets were worth about 800 million RMB, but he died in November 2008. Regarding the reason of his death, some said it was suicide, others said it wasn't. Anyway, he passed away, leaving all his wealth behind. So, indeed, much of the wealth in the world is not reliable. People painstakingly accumulate wealth, but it can disappear from your hands as quickly as lightning once you die, or even when you are alive. Mipham Rinpoche said in the Words on the Mundane and Transmundane Codes that the wealth of beings is like lightning. Their bodies are impermanent like water bubbles. The lightning-like wealth of beings disappear in an instant. Our bubble-like bodies are completely impermanent. Yet, many people in this world do not know about this. In Teachings of the King's Codes, it is said, "The human body is like a water bubble, and wealth is like autumn clouds floating in the sky." The human body is like a water bubble, and wealth is like the white clouds floating in the autumn sky, which can disappear in an instant. But in the world, those who deeply understand such truth are few. So they are very attached to wealth and prosperity, the essence of which is not reliable. In Master Han Shan's Song of Awakening the World, it is well said, "In spring, we just saw the willow turn green. In autumn, we began to see the chrysanthemums turn yellow." Prosperity is ultimately a dream at midnight. Wealth is like the frost in September. In spring, the willow turns green. In autumn, you see chrysanthemums turning yellow. Through the green of the willow and the yellow of the chrysanthemum, the metaphor points out the changes from spring to autumn, revealing the manifestation of impermanence. Prosperity is a midnight dream that wakes quickly. And what about wealth? It is like the frost of September. In September, as the weather is rather warm, frost is difficult to form. Even if there is frost, it quickly disappears without a trace. In the world, I don't think it's difficult to understand such truth. I hope many people can frequently contemplate these teachings from great masters and scriptures. Then, whether it's about your body or external wealth and status, you should regard them all lightly. In this way, practice should not be difficult. No one can tell whether you will die tomorrow or today. There is a verse in Chapter of Causes and Conditions. In the morning, you see many people. By afternoon, those people are gone. In the afternoon, you see many people. By the next morning, those people are gone. You see many people in the morning who are no longer there by the afternoon. In the afternoon, you see many people who may no longer be there by the next morning. People can die very suddenly. The Lama next door to me was in his 70s and he was fine yesterday, but by this morning, he had already passed away. Just as we speak, a group of Sangha are chanting for him. However, the manner of passing away is really different for Dharma practitioners compared to secular people. The Lama who just died was already a very dedicated practitioner during Phuntsok Rinpoche's time. How did he pass away? In the morning, he just finished chanting a section of the Liberation by Wearing, then passed away sitting in the full lotus posture. But we temporarily request that no one should go to visit, because for people practicing the great perfection, after they die, the body cannot be moved immediately, and it is not appropriate for many people to visit and chant right away. At least keep the door closed for 7 or 8 days. Many people here have received empowerment and done some Vajrayana practices. For such people, after they pass away, there should still be a waiting period before spreading the word. It's best not to tell anyone in the first several days after they pass away. But I just told you about the passing away of that Lama. The Tenpo just told me. I'm telling you in advance that if I die in the future, it's best to keep my door shut for 7 days. I told him, don't say such things. Otherwise, after a while, you might actually die. In general, this really should be taken seriously. So just as mentioned earlier in the chapter of causes and conditions, there are many people who are fine in the morning, but have left this world by afternoon. We usually don't pay attention to such perceptions of impermanence. Many lay practitioners and secular people don't pay attention to impermanence at all. When someone dies, people find it strange, wondering how they could die. They cannot accept it, crying and lamenting immediately. But those who have contemplated impermanence think people dying is very normal, just as normal as people going to sleep, whether it's the father or the mother who died. In this long time of samsara, How many times have we died and been reborn? The cycles of birth and death keep turning continuously. There is really nothing worthy of suffering or sadness in this regard. The original text goes on. Even by observing the cattle, sheep, dogs, and so on in your livestock pens, you can see how many have already died and how many are still alive now. Especially in Tibet, the feeling of the dying of livestock is very strong. You can also observe the animals around you. When I was young, I would return home from boarding school after a few months. By then, many yaks and sheep would often have died. At that time, although I hadn't yet received such profound teachings, I had a strong sense of impermanence. Without qualified teacher teaching on the impermanence, there are people who have a strong sense of impermanence since childhood, maybe due to the previous lifetime's practice or other connections. The original text goes on. When we reflect on all these cases, we can see that nothing endures forever. Not a single person who lived more than a century ago has escaped death. It's mostly the case, but with some exceptions. Generally speaking, nowadays, there are very few people who live to 100 years old. Basically, there are none. The original text says, 100 years from now, not a single person alive today in the entire world of Jambudvipa will remain. All will have passed away, none will be left behind. Most people in the world today are certain to die within 100 years. Venerable Longchenpa also said in Finding Comfort and Ease in the Nature of Mind, the beings in this world today will definitely all die within 100 years. So for many of you present today, the time to remain in this human world is indeed not long. 100 years is actually a very short time, and within this period, all will leave this world. The original text says, thus, among all phenomena, whether animate or inanimate, not a single thing exists that is permanent or unchanging. Therefore, from the summit of the highest heavens to the very depths of hell, all phenomena, no matter the physical phenomena or sentient beings, cannot remain stable. This can be summarized as, whatever is born is bound to die. Whatever is accumulated is bound to depleted. Whatever is united is bound to separate. Whatever is piled up is bound to collapse. Whatever rises high is bound to fall. Whatever rises is bound to fall, and whatever is piled is bound to collapse, can be combined as one, thus forming what we commonly call the four certainties of impermanence. These are the four observation methods of impermanence. The four observational methods are also recorded in the scriptures. For example, it is mentioned in the chapters on monastic discipline. In the past, in the city of Shravasti, there were some merchants. Among them, one was particularly obsessed with building, who loved construction and was always engaged in it. Another loved to gather with friends who often invited them over and entertained them. One liked to accumulate wealth, and another was interested in keeping in good health. Later, the Buddha gave each of these four people a different teaching. What is accumulated must disperse. What is high must fall. Unions will eventually separate. All those with life will inevitably die. The meaning of this teaching Buddha gave them is that all that is accumulated will one day disappear. What is high will certainly fall. What comes together will eventually separate and disperse. And all sentient beings that are born will ultimately die. Thus, Buddha gave these four teachings to each of the merchants separately. This is also very important in our daily practice. In the great biography of Buddha Shakyamuni, the Sutra of 100 Karmic Stories, and Sutra of the Wise and Fool, and other related texts, Shakyamuni Buddha has gone through great hardship to obtain such special teachings in his former lives. Only reflecting on the four examinations of impermanence can have very profound benefits. The original text says, also, friendship and enmity, joy and misfortune, virtue and wrongdoing, all the thoughts that pass through your mind, everything is in constant flux. Our relationship with others is also impermanent, Our relationship with someone who we think is close as real relatives can sour in one day. Similarly, the relationship with someone is really bad today that we even fight with them, but in a few days, the relationship improves and we start inviting each other over for dinner. Things like this happen. Someone could be a bad person in the first half of their life and a good person in the second half. We will discuss many of these principles later. Whether good or bad things, and a friend or an enemy, all are indeed impermanent. For example, when some practitioners are disobedient, I lose my temper with them and think, today I'm angry with him, but in a couple of days, we might be on the best terms. Sometimes, when I have a good impression of some practitioners, I would think this might be the best one. But I always remain cautious, thinking that later he might disappoint me the most, and I can't trust him too much. I often have such concerns. Sometimes, people's mindsets and behaviors are all impermanent. So there is nothing in this world that is eternal, fixed, and unchanging. Next, each of the 5 certainties of impermanence is explained briefly. The original text says, "Whatever is born is bound to die. You might be as high as the sky, as powerful as a thunderbolt, as wealthy as a Naga king, as handsome as a god, or as beautiful as a rainbow. Yet when death suddenly comes, there's not a moment's freedom. One must depart this world naked and empty-handed, forced to leave behind all possessions, food and drink, family, followers, disciples, servants, and retinue, all that one clings to so dearly. Like a single hair pulled from butter, one goes forth alone." Let's take a look. The people as exalted as the heavens. It is said here, everyone is impermanent in the end. Even they are highly envied in the world and holding very high positions, such as the presidents, prime ministers, and heads of various religions. Those people who are considered the highest, most elevated leaders in the world and are above thousands of people, like the UN Secretary General, the President of the United States, the Chairman of China, and so on, will all die as normal people in the end. The history and many books also show the impermanence of these big shots. There used to be one book about the former presidents of the United States. For example, Reagan ended up as a farmer, and Washington, the first US president, ended up farming in a quiet place, and so on. A strong feeling of impermanence arises when reading such books. It is truly unimaginable and inconceivable when comparing the way they started out to how they ended up. Then there are people as mighty as a thunderbolt. Some people are powerful and aggressive, and the entire world can be said to be under their control, like Hitler, who launched World War II. I have a book about Hitler at home that I sometimes read. Reading it doesn't mean I want to start another world war, but indeed, in the actions of some of these great figures, I saw the impermanence. In some historical records, he at the time killed 6 million Jews and countless people from other races and ethnic groups. But in the end, he too succumbed to impermanence. Looking at some of his photos, you truly can feel the impermanence. There are also other worldly figures like Genghis Khan and Emperor Qin Shi Huang. The histories from the beginning of their reigns are truly fascinating. For example, Emperor Qin Shi Huang annihilated all the neighboring states, including Qi, and then began to establish his own country. He declared, "From now on, all previous dynasties are finished. I should be the first emperor of China, and from now on, all the following generations of emperors will be from my family." But, unexpectedly, by the second generation, the Qin dynasty was already over. So actually, history could be considered the best teachings on impermanence. But in today's schools, the history teachings seem dry and tasteless. Some teachers themselves just list the people of a dynasty without feeling any sense of impermanence. The other day, I went to a school and happened to sit in and listen. It was a history class. I got a lot of feelings of impermanence in my heart when they were teaching each dynasty and the emperors. But it seems the teacher's method of teaching to the students is different. The methods and directions of teaching in regular schools are different, so the students might not have these kinds of feelings. And then there are people as rich as a Naga. In the past, there were many wealthy individuals in the world. Now as well, the well-known Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are really wealthy. Although they are considered the world's wealthiest, they too will face impermanence ultimately, as nothing is reliable. Lastly, there are people as good-looking as a god or as pretty as a rainbow. The extremely pretty women whose beauty can dwarf the moon, shame the flowers, cause the fish to sink and geese to fall from the sky, will also go through the impermanence. There is nothing reliable in beauty. Seemingly, they are admired by many people, but ultimately, the wrinkles on their faces cannot be removed, no matter how much cosmetic surgery or any kind of procedure is done. In similar cases, some of our Tibetan elders would react differently and would say in a very delightful tone, "Look, I have so many wrinkles now, as well as so much white hair. I think it might be better to face it happily. There's no need to be particularly sad and always grumble. I've grown old. I've grown old." And it is not necessary to get angry or upset when someone says, "You are old." In the end, regardless, when death suddenly comes, you would leave naked and cold. Naked here is a metaphor, meaning that you have to let go of everything and only rely on your soul to follow the karma to go to the next life. At that time, you can't bring anyone or anything with you, whether it's wealth or all the family and loved ones, and just leave alone reluctantly. As said in the Infinite Life Sutra, or Amitayu Sutra, in the realm of love and desire, one is born alone, dies alone, goes alone, and comes alone. When we came to this world, we came alone and empty-handed, and when we die, we will leave in the same way. Master Shantideva taught the same. We simply do not understand now that everything will have to be abandoned at death. But those who have received the Mahayana teaching should be prepared. Another verse is, "The suffering of death is borne by oneself alone." The pain of the soul departing and other various feelings during the process of dying can only be experienced by oneself. You cannot share even a fraction of the suffering with your relatives or friends, no matter how many of them gather around you. If it were possible to share the pain of death, some great leaders or famous figures would gladly share their suffering with their dependents. But it truly is impossible. It's like pulling a hair out of butter. The hair retains nothing, not even a bit of the butter. Therefore, Patrul Rinpoche's analogy is very vivid. If you don't believe it, you can buy some butter and pull the hair out. You will see that the hair won't hold anything. The same logic applies when a person dies, that he leaves alone and lonely, even though among the crowds. Others can only chant for him, which truly helps him. Beyond that, wealth, status, fame, and worldly splendor, all must be abandoned by him, none of which is of any use for him. The original text says, "Even a master of thousands of monks cannot take a single disciple. Even a chief of countless tribes cannot take one servant or slave. Even the owner of all wealth in Jambudvipa cannot take a single thread or needle. Even this most cherished body that we so carefully protect must ultimately be abandoned." Indeed, even the greatest masters must leave behind all their disciples. Like Phuntsok Rinpoche, he traveled to India and the US, also the places nearby like Nyagrong and Wutai Mountain, with a great number of disciples following him. When Phuntsok Rinpoche went to Mount Wutai, over 10,000 Tibetans, including monastics and lay people, followed him, as mentioned in his Songs of Realization. When I first came to the Larung 5 Science Buddhist Institute, Phuntsok Rinpoche went to Nina Wang, with over 60 great masters accompanying him at that time. Later, when we were head to Mount Wutai, around 1986, Phuntsok Rinpoche went to a place called Dawu first and visited about 73 monasteries with 25 disciples. Later, he went to places like India and the US, also with a certain number of attendants. But when he manifested passing away later, all these disciples remained in the human realm. The manifestation was such that he left alone. Recently, Nyingma's lineage master Penor Rinpoche also passed away. Penor Rinpoche has many disciples not only in India, but also in the hundreds of Palyul school monasteries in Tibet. But when he manifested entering into parinirvana, he left alone. The same principle applies to all worldly people. When people with high positions like presidents and prime ministers die, they cannot take even one person with them. Therefore, we must reflect deeply on death and understand that only the Dharma can help when death comes, and nothing else is of any use. Phuntsok Rinpoche used to quote a teaching from the Sutra of Instructions to the king. When a king is close to death, neither possessions nor family follow. Wherever one goes, karma follows like a shadow. I hope every practitioner should recite this teaching. You should know that while it is Buddha's teaching to kings, this actually applies to each of us. When you approach death, none of your possessions, your dependents, and all the worldly pleasures you have enjoyed will follow. What will follow your soul? It is the good or bad karma you have created in this life. If you have done good deeds, you will experience happiness in future lifetimes. If you have done bad deeds, henceforth, you will experience the negative effects in various worlds. Every cause has its effect. That's how it is. This is also mentioned in the 1,000-character classic. Good behavior brings blessings and happiness. Evil behavior brings misfortune and suffering. One teacher said in her lecture that this is just a superstitious saying. I was very angry and thought to myself, what do you mean by just a superstitious saying? You don't understand anything. She clearly didn't understand anything, but unnecessarily tried to explain it. Where was I? I was so angry with her misleading statement that I lost track of the lecture. The original text says, some people in life wear fine silks, drink tea and wine, hold high positions, and possess celestial beauty. Yet after death, their bodies become mere corpses, lying askew, a fearsome sight. Some people in life are very happy, wearing fine silks, eating exotic delicacies, and drinking expensive tea like pu'er tea. They may also hold high positions and look as beautiful as celestial beings. But when they die, they turn into corpses. Lying there distorted, which are frightening to behold. Many people used to say, why did Leslie Chung, a famous Hong Kong singer and actor, look so bad after he died? Many news reporters also said so. In fact, when people die, no one looks good. When Teresa Teng, a famous female singer, died in Thailand, many journalists began taking photos after a couple of days and said, why is her corpse so unsightly? There's really nothing to say about it. Nobody who is dead would look particularly good. In the commentary on the 400 verses, there are also many analogies. For example, when one of the king's favorite concubines dies and her body was possessed by a demon, the king will do whatever he can to destroy it. So in our world, once you understand the structure of any human body, it's easy to comprehend the difference between the living and the dead. The original text says, as Jetsun Milarepa said, this frightful corpse you see is none other than your present body. He said that when we see a terrifying corpse and do not dare to come near it, that terrifying corpse is actually the body we each have right now. The only difference between us and corpses is that we are breathing. So you could say that there are so many corpses now in this hall. When people gather together, they are all corpses. Many people always say don't get close to the corpses. When some practitioners pass away, the people who guard the corpse are really terrified at night, worrying that it might stand up. But there's really nothing to fear, because it still is the same body, even if it stood up. If you weren't afraid when it was standing while it was alive, there's nothing to be afraid of now when it's temporarily lying down. The original text says, after someone dies, their corpse is trussed up with a rope. In Tibet, there are many methods of binding corpses. According to rituals, tradition, and some terma rituals, there are many details to pay attention to. The original text goes on, the body is veiled beneath a shroud, held down by earth and stone. The bowl owned during life is placed upside down beside the head. Many Kadampa Geshes put their bowls upside down before they sleep at night, because they think they are certain to die. It is the Tibetan tradition that after a person dies, bowls are generally placed upside down. So when people are alive, many try not to turn bowls upside down. Otherwise, parents might be unhappy and they feel it is inauspicious. The original text goes on, no matter how cherished or esteemed they were in life, now their bodies inspire only revulsion and dread. While alive, they lay on layered, comfortable beds, wrapped in warm lambskin or fine garments, resting their heads on soft pillows made of animal fur. And yet, even then, the smallest discomfort would disturb their rest, causing them to toss and turn again and again. They would think, oh, there's a tiny barley grain or rice on my bed, so uncomfortable, and started rolling around on their soft and luxurious mattress. They cannot stand even a little discomfort. But after someone dies, according to Han Chinese tradition, the corpse is placed in a coffin which is so hard, but there's no feeling at all, as if they are sleeping comfortably. But nowadays, after death, when the corpses reach the funeral home, they are specially made up, and the makeup fees are quite expensive. Some people never wore makeup when they were alive, but after they die, their family pays money to put makeup on them. Now there are many ways to make money, but these are all meaningless. I think the makeup fees would be better used to offer a lamp, or make some prayer flags, or carve an Avalokiteshvara mantra stone for them. In Tibet, when someone dies, there are usually prayer flags or stones engraved with Avalokiteshvara mantra where the ashes or the body is placed. This way, the soul would not be afraid, because there are blessings of the 3 jewels always protecting him. This is extremely important. In the future, if some of your relatives or friends pass away, it is better to scatter their ashes in a charnel ground blessed by gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas. Then place some prayer flags for them in various places. This is really necessary for the deceased. Even if you don't have their ashes with you, just recite their name and put up prayer flags or engrave some Avalokiteshvara mantras on stones. Doing this is of great benefit to the deceased, which is specifically recorded in terma treasures and some scriptures. The original text goes on, but once a person has died, they lie still, their cheek pressed against a stone or a patch of grass, their hair matted with dust and soil. When alive, people love to adorn themselves with their hair shining bright every day. But after death, it won't be like that anymore. Oh, I cannot finish what I wanted to teach today. What should I do? Some lay practitioners outside the institute told me, oh, we're so tired of listening to the teachings. We just hope it can end quickly and instantly. But it seems like you can't finish talking. How wonderful if you can just end the class a little earlier. We just hope to finish the lecture quickly. May the Guru and the 3 jewels bless us to end the lecture soon. So today, there is another section to discuss that we might not be able to finish. Never mind. let's just leave it at this.
Bandara